Well, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Good afternoon, and welcome once again. Very pleased to be able to welcome back Milbillie, who's agreed to come on and do a little bit more chat with us. Obviously, Milbillie, you've got your own channel, which is just absolutely going from strength to strength, and quite rightly so because of all the stuff that you've put out there. Well, first of all, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant to have you back. That phone call between Steve and Emily Matesic, I've listened to that a few times now. I find all of that journalist stuff that to be very interesting. My first question would be, how did you feel the journalists tended to cover the case back in 05, 06, 07?
Basically, they were believing what the officers were telling them. I mean, they had a press conference damn near every day.
Yeah.
And I don't know. She seemed like she was trying to get Stephen to admit to something he didn't do.
Very much so, yes. She actually, at one point, I don't know, I got the sense that she was starting to almost become frustrated with Steve because she thought that she could just say to him, look, you've got all this evidence points against you. What's with this stupidity of you trying to claim you're innocent? And at one point, she actually does simply just come straight out with it and just says, are you seriously trying to say? How did she word it? I think she just blatantly comes out. Steve, did you murder Teresa Holbach?
Mm-hmm.
And then, or did you have anything to do with covering up for somebody else? Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, no, it's definitely not. He says I certainly wouldn't cover for somebody else. Is Emily typical of the kind of journalists that were operating at the time?
Most part, yeah.
Yeah. Have we got any other journalists that you? I suppose, daft question. You've got 957 videos, but of course they don't send it. Sorry, audio clips.
Yeah.
They don't send it to you with a complete rundown of as to who's saying what to whom. Does it?
No, you have to actually listen to each one.
Yeah.
And Foul Play, they've uploaded, I think, over 500 of them now. And Christy from Foul Play, she's actually doing a detailed analysis of each call. Yeah. She's listening to it in time as it happens, so she gets a real feel of what's really going on.
To be honest, pal, I find it amazing that you're doing all this great work. What can I just ask? What do you do to relax? Is it the Milwaukee Brewers that you support?
No, I'm a Packer fan, diehard Packer
fan.
Yeah. I spend all my free time just researching this case.
Yeah.
Listening, taking notes, comparing things.
I suppose that it must be a case of it's actually quite rewarding at times when you come across little gems.
When I was listening to one call where Steven's talking to Dolores, and he mentions that he was burning Radon's brush.
Yeah.
Because he burnt his brush on the 31st. That's why he had to fire. It was like I listening through probably like 160 calls, just waiting to hear that, and I finally did. Yeah. It was so bittersweet.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because I've been trying to put a timeline together.
Right.
Today, starting on the 3rd, I got almost done. I've started off doing a timeline for Steve A's activities for the 31st, just to see if he'd be able to actually do this. If he did, knowing how.
What? Sorry, forgive my ignorance, but I've heard that term a couple of times. But what does burn in the brush actually mean? Does that mean like stuff that's blown across?
Well, he got home from Crivets Sunday the 30th. He brought the Suzuki home along with the snowmobile because he was planning on selling it to pay for bills and help Jody with her bills, because if she pays off her tickets and everything, they'll release her faster.
Right.
And Redant is cutting the brush that's in between his properties and Cuss Road. And Stephen asks, if you want to cut down the brush behind my house, I'll burn it all.
Yeah.
So they made out a deal. He cut down the brush and I'll burn it. So he left it in the field adjacent to his property.
Yeah.
And they carried it over to the burn pit and burned it.
Yeah. 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 Okay. Yeah, I've actually had the pleasure of actually walking all the way around that caravan of his, and there's a dip at the back, and it opens out to the
And Kratz tries to claim that's where they threw the bones, right behind his house. Not true.
No, absolutely not.
Nowhere near it.
As I say, it's kind of. You'll have to forgive me for this. It's almost like a lazy question, but as I was mentioning to you earlier, but I don't think for one moment it's a case of if there's going to be a making a murderer seriously. I think it's a case of when.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
when.
Yeah,
depends on what happens after February.
Yes, absolutely. What of the phone calls that you've listened to, are there excerpts from there that you're thinking they're going to have to include this in Making a Murderer #3 because these are so revealing?
Well, definitely the dispatch from Calumet. There's so much in there.
Yeah,
I don't know how many people have actually listened to it, but yeah.
I must admit, I've listened to stuff, but I'm one of these that I'll listen to it, and it doesn't always, sort of register as to how significant some of these bits are.
Well, out of the 19,027 files in the Cali dispatch, about 9,000 of them are relevant to the case.
Mm-hmm.
That's from the 3rd from the 3rd into the 12th.
I mean, are we talking about the fact that there is clearly something going on in Cuss Road?
Definitely. The fact that we have all these photos the day after it's discovered, if it was just a tree stump and nothing of importance, why are they going back the next day? Why do they have the Wisconsin State Patrol recreating everything? I mean, the Wisconsin State Patrol was there from the 5th on. Right. Every day. They're the one that took all the aerial photos, all the photos on the property, all the photos of the RAV. He is, though. Colburn was there taking pictures the whole time, too, but we don't have any of his photos. Like, he's the one that documents the audio box phone on the turnaround, along with all of the papers. Why do they completely ignore that? Everybody they interview, they start out like Tammy Weavers claims that, tells Stephen that the cops did this and they planted the car. They go to talk to her, Greg Cheddar, for the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, and they start out asking her about the car and what they said, and she tells them that, I heard it from my son's friends, the Schneider boys. The Schneider boys' father is a police officer. Mm-hmm. When they go and talk to him, he claims that his kids were playing with the Ouija board, and that's where they got the idea the car was planted. And it seems like everybody else they talk to, they start talking about things that they were brought up about, and then they try to change the person's statement to try to get them to say something negative about Stephen.
Yes, there's a whole load of stuff that gets changed, isn't there? From the outset, people are changing their stories, not just, and I'm not just mean like Bobby and Scott.
Everybody, Bobby, Scott, Barb, all of them. Even Blaine and Brian changed their statements and signed affidavits for Zellner and them. And when they're interviewed by the 2017 reopened case by Queso, they changed their statements completely. And all these affidavits that Zellner has now completely debunks what they testified in trial. So that's going to be thrown out too. Why is Colborne lying? Why is Tyson sent in there to babysit Manitowoc when Manitowoc's supposed to be supplying security?
Mm.
They have the same officers running the checkpoints every day.
Yeah.
I mean, just why they're intentionally trying to hide 2.5 hours on the 3rd.
Yeah, it's Tyson. I don't know about you. He doesn't come across as being the most dishonest cop in the world. I get the impression that he tried, to do his babysitting correctly, because it's interesting, isn't it, that on two previous occasions, Lenk and Colburn are with Tyson.
Yep. They're there the day before and the day after. The day that Kucharski's watching them is when they're in the key.
Because Kucharski isn't really thinking in terms
and
of.
If you listen to the Manitowoc Dispatch, we don't have it in its entirety, so who knows what's missing out. But they don't talk about bones at all. And you hear Colborne requesting the animal rescue people to come and remove a dog, bear, on the 9th. Not the 8th, the 9th.
What date were the cremains found? Was that the 10th?
Well, they found the stuff in the Dassey's burn barrel on the 12th.
Yeah.
After they already collected it prior. So the fact that we have no photos of Discovery at all in the burn pit.
We don't.
I mean, they used the goddamn Bobcat.
Yeah. Yeah, they actually dug up, didn't they? They actually sort of excavated most of that, most of the actual burn pit, in order to try and discover if, because I believe I might be saying that there should have been, in effect, bodily fluids from the victim that would have seeped into the ground, and that's what they were looking for. Well, amongst other things. I mean, it's like Brendan says that Teresa was shot 11 times. You would imagine, therefore, that there would be at least one bullet or a bit of bullet embedded in a bit of bone.
Well, if you listen to that interview with Brendan tries saying that she was shot outside the garage.
Yeah.
He initially says that. And then they ask, well, what did you do with the car? And what does he say? Oh, he put the gun in it. They're like, no, what did you do with the car? Did you go under the hood or anything? They're leading them to say things that they need them to say so they can go back and plant more evidence.
Yeah.
And listening to the jail calls, that's how they found Brendan. Stephen states himself, they were sitting by the fire on the golf cart watching it burn.
Yeah.
But Brendan's back home before 9 p.m. because Stephen's in the house talking to Jody.
Yes, and also what time is it that Barb gets?
9:08 p.m. She leaves again to go to Scott's. You can hear her in the phone call with Jody. He said, "Oh, she's leaving again."
Mm-hmm. So she leaves, I think, about 6 o'clock. Comes back just after 9 o'clock. She's away for 3 hours,
roughly.
And this is supposedly when all this raping and stabbing and.
Well, if you listen to the December 26th call, where he talks to Scott and all them, Scott says he dropped her off around 8.
Yeah. But we don't have any mention of a really foul smell, do we? We don't have any mention of.
Well, there is. Zellner claims to have an affidavit from Travis Girl, who works for Scott, Josh Radant.
Yep.
But I have yet to see it. She mentions it in her last, the second brief before the last one. I have yet to see it. He claims that he smelled the foul smell on the 31st. But I have yet to see the actual affidavit for him, so who knows?
Yeah. We've also, have we not got, is it the lovely Bendy Waldron, Wendy Baldwin, trying to say that she apparently went into the Steve's trailer and could smell the bleach.
Yeah. Well, he was cleaning the house prior on the 31st. He talks about it. He was listening to country music and cleaning up the house. And if you look at when they go to Tyson's exit video, Steven's house was probably the cleanest.
Yeah.
And why are they doing an exit video while they're still doing measurements of his trailer? If it's an exit video, it should be when you're done processing everything.
Yeah.
And the fact that you hear in these calls that they destroyed their property. In the videos, everything looks fine. They broke the garage door. Well, you can see when Chuck tries to let him in the house, he can't even get in his house because they broke the door. He's actually got to go get a screwdriver out the garage and break in his own house. Mm-hmm. And he told them, if you guys are going to break in the back door. Mm-hmm. They're going around destroying all their cars, popping all the trunks. Barb even tells them, I got keys for all these vehicles. Just ask for them. No, they don't. Colburn's going around with a crowbar, popping every single car.
Mm-hmm. All right. Listen, we've got a visitor. I suppose we better let him in, hadn't we?
All right.
Here we go.
Hello.
Hello. Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hello, Milbillie. How you doing, buddy?
How you going there, Jose?
Good. Hanging in there.
You got finished early after all, then?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. And did you manage to get all your clients all sorted out? Did you?
Yeah.
Good. I'm just looking to see, because I thought I can highlight who.
Yeah, you got to click on the individual picture on the bottom.
All right. Okay.
Oh, hey there.
Oh.
Now he's figured it out.
Thank you, Milbillie. That's that. Now that's that. That makes sense. Okay, so I can highlight people individually, but I can also do that, and I can do.
Right. I'll be right back. I'll use the bathroom.
Oh, you,
hey, everybody.
You carry on. Hello there. How you doing?
What's up, dude?
Well, I've had to listen to a few things.
Hey, everybody! Stacy Seabrook uploaded a song today.
Yeah, he's done a $50 million bullet song as well, hasn't he? Yeah. I was gonna ask you. There was a tweet I saw from RD Rubber Ducky. And in it she says that after 4 years of journalistic investigation into the Avery case, that Manitowoc and Calumet have proven they will cross the ethic and moral line, even 14 years later. In my opinion, law enforcement killed her, hired someone to do it, or she is still alive. And I just wondered what you thought about that.
Who said that?
The Rubber Ducky.
Rubber Ducky said that?
Yeah. I just wondered what you thought.
Well, my thoughts are, what my feelings are about what she's saying.
The debut studio album by American
Calm down,
R&B
Alexa.
singer-songwriter Yvonne.
Okay. Before we go any further,
unplug that
sorry. Before we go any further, I do have one important question to ask Milbillie. Who's your favourite type of music? What's your favourite type of music? What's your favourite band?
I listen to all kinds of music. One of my favorite bands is Sublime.
Right.
Metallica.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
All kinds of stuff. Everything.
Have you ever heard of a group called Transplants?
No.
Yeah. You know the song with the piano? It used to be in shampoo commercials. Oh
yeah.
Well,
that's
there's a great line from one of their songs, and I try and think if it's called "Gangsters and Thugs" or "Diamonds and Guns."
Yeah.
But it's a line that goes, "It's a wicked world that we live in.
It's cruel.
It's cruel." Anyway, we're digressing.
Right. So to get back to what you were asking me about Rubber Ducky's assessment there, I mean, I don't know if I agree with all of her particulars and everything that she necessarily believes, but for me, what she's basically getting at there with that statement is that in all the time that people have been researching this, and digging in on this, that we have not suddenly gotten like affirmation that Manitowoc and Calumet were doing things the right way, and so most likely Stephen's guilty or something like that. It's not like that. It's we continue to see them looking shady, doing shady things, clamming up. They don't want to talk. They don't want to say anything. They just want to try to leave it lie. And they're hoping the whole thing's going to blow over. But I think that's just a lost cause to think that that's going to happen.
Milbillie, what do you make of Ken Peterson when he refers to the fact that it would have been easier?
I can't believe you said it.
to
kill him, then yeah.
Does that, to me, that proves that conversation actually took place?
He said it on the news.
Yeah. To me, I don't know any other way of taking it other than they have discussed within the sheriff's department the idea of taking Stephen Avery out.
Well, what do you think would happen if something did happen to Stephen Avery?
No. Yeah.
I think they had him in solitary confinement the whole damn time.
Yeah.
Why do they keep throwing him in the hole every time something important happened with this case?
Mm-hmm.
Like they throw him in the hole right before they talked to Brendan for the last time.
Mm-hmm.
And he's telling them, don't talk to the cops. Don't talk to the cops. They're going to try to trick you. What do? They turn to everybody against them.
Yep.
Except for Carla, Stacy, and Dolores. Every time he asks Chuck or Earl to do something for him, they give him the runaround. Well, I haven't talked to Redon yet. I haven't talked to Redon yet.
And I did listen to one of the calls there with Jody and Chuck, and was kind of like, whoa, wow, Chuck was really on the fence back when all the evidence was coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's understandable, guys, because listen, if I find out somebody I know is having all that stuff in their backyard, I'm going to be concerned. Mm-hmm. Until I know better, I'm going to be concerned. You know what I mean? So I can understand Chuck being that way when he's not knowing the circumstances of how that evidence is found. He doesn't know that it's only 2/5 of the cremains that are found in the supposed, original burn site. And, so it's like there's they don't know all these things yet. And so they're just hearing the hit parade. Oh yeah, they found a bullet with Teresa's DNA. Oh, they found her bones, her bones, most of them, they give that impression that it's like most of or all of her bones, but it's really not. It's only 2/5, 40%. And so they don't know all these things. And so I can understand how he felt that way. But I've talked to Chuck, though, in the more present day. 2 years ago at Raleigh, actually got to kind of talk to him one-on-one when we were walking around the property. And he is very much, convinced that Stephen was framed and all that sort of stuff. But it was interesting to listen to that call with Chuck and Jody, though. Well, because you're just listening to them doubt themselves and it'd be a tough situation all the way around.
Well, that's the best thing about listening to these jail calls. You get to hear what's happening in real time, especially when Dolores and them are listening to the news together. Every time he says keys, Dolores is always there. It's a key, Stephen. One key. They found one key. Who carries one key?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Now,
so one key. I mean, yeah. Oh,
okay. So my question would be, how do you think the people, particularly in Manitowoc and Calumet, but in Wisconsin in general, are going to react when they finally realize that if it is a case of law enforcement have in effect sacrificed a 25-year-old girl in order to get, because this is something that Emily Matasic says, isn't it, in this phone call? Do you really think that law enforcement would kill a 25-year-old photographer in order to get rid of your civil suit? I'm afraid I do. I do feel that they are that twisted and that desperate. And I just wondered what you thought of the situation leading up to Steve being arrested for this, and the fact that everything was
Well, the
going.
fact that they arrest him on a gun charge. They're supposedly finding these bones in his burn pit, but they arrest him for a gun charge. They had no proof. Everything they were finding could easily be argued as being planted, because it was. That's why they went back in March and used Brendan to go find more evidence.
Right. Because they knew a good lawyer was going to be able to shoot holes in their case all day long.
100%.
And so that's what made Brendan so important. I mean, that's why it's just, if you watch the progression of events on it, it's they're browbeating the hell out of Jody. And she eventually just gets sick of it because their questions are getting more sick and twisted, and, you know, that sort of stuff. And she eventually just goes, you know what? Don't let those guys back in, please, to the jail. And she's like, don't let them in. I don't want to see them. And then they're all of a sudden like, oh, whoa, you know, what do we do? What do we do? The Dassey boys. Let's go see what they know. Let's go see what we can shake down, right? And that's when they hone in on Brendan. And listen, they didn't even use Brendan at Stephen's trial. They didn't need to.
No,
because by feeding him that story, so that Ken Kratz could then puppet it back to the public in that press conference, that was it. Everybody there in that area decided that day. Well, not everybody, maybe, but I mean, most people that day decided Stephen Avery's guilty. Oh, you know, because of that.
It was not just manslaughter. It was.
But go back and look at that confession now.
Oh yeah. I just don't understand why whoever put it on YouTube, why they edited out the part one. I put it back together in its entirety. It's almost hour and a half long for part one now.
Yeah. Where'd you find the missing bits?
Mystic Jinx.
Oh, Jinxie. Right on. So that's cool. What I can tell you about it is that channel, that's those videos that Ken was pointing to, that channel is the channel of somebody who I know to be a guilter. I don't want to say who their real name is, but I do know that channel is actually a guilter. So it's odd to me that a guilter would edit out anything to try to favor, or, you know, more. It would be more likely what they were editing out was probably more favorable to Brendan in my mind. What did they edit out? Because I never really got to see what
the whole part about being shot. Who shot her in the head? That whole situation.
That whole bit. The
whole thing is gone.
Okay. I was always wondering where the hell that was.
It's well, if you go on my YouTube channel, you can watch it.
Cool. I will go check it out.
I was planning on putting all 3 parts into one video, but
that's a long watch.
People are going to watch it. That's why I put the Manitowoc Dispatch for the 5th in the 3 parts, because it was like 3 hours long.
Yeah. It's good to break them up.
These jail calls, I initially was going to do it by day, but some of these calls are like, one of the calls is 88 minutes long.
Yeah, I imagine it's good to split them up, because people will kind of, you know, start to lose attention on it if it gets to be long sometimes, especially if it's just kind of mundane listening most of the time. People will kind of get a little bit, distracted.
Well, that's right. Great. Christy from Foul Play on the YouTube channel, she's actually going through and doing a detailed analysis of every call.
Yeah.
And she's listening to them in order, so she gets a feel of what's really going on.
Yeah. Well, I've started going through them. I'm gonna go through them myself, and I'm sure I'm gonna have some of my own analysis.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. A lot of audio.
Yeah. Well, I know what it's like to be digging in and doing a lot of work. I mean, I've been there. So, but
I wanted to ask, going back to the Emily Matasic, in a way, I don't object, to a journalist questioning Steve, to the extent that she does. But I just wonder, can you recall if she queried the state with that same type of veracity, or was it just a case of?
Right. She's there during all the press conferences they give.
Yeah,
questions too.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think the only time I There is one time I would congratulate her, and that is the time when Mike Holbach proudly proclaims on the stairs of Manitou Cortez, pop the DVD in your video player. That will and that will be your case. And she says to him,
and he said,
"Have you watched it?"
Nope.
Have you watched it?
And the look on her face from behind, she just goes,
I've
the eyes roll up.
I've watched his interrogations probably about 6 times now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've watched him several times myself.
I mean, I watched all of Stephen Avery's interviews. I mean, just listening, taking notes of things he's saying, comparing to the other interviews, seeing what sticks and what's changing, and it's always the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you to get your crystal balls out. No, don't worry. I'm not being rude. I'm asking about what we think in the future. What one thing that did cross my mind was this: if Governor Evers takes a serious look at Brendan's case, is he not also at the same time taking a serious look at Steve's case?
I think you'd have to look at them both.
I mean, yeah. I mean, they're kind of collateral to each other. So, I mean, he's going to obviously be looking at aspects that of Steve's case to be able to understand the charges against Brendan and to be able to understand everything, right? So,
I think he's going to wait till after February before he makes a decision.
Yeah, I kind of the cynic in me thinks that he's not going to make a decision. He's going to leave it for the courts to decide. I'm kind of
Dean and Jerry didn't have any of this Calumet dispatch.
Yeah,
that's new evidence that could be used with Brendan.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan can still file a 97-406. That is something he can still do.
But he needs something solid.
But he wants, exactly. Drizzen and Knight Rider want to come up with something really, really rock solid before they go down that path. So,
well, look at the guy that confessed to doing it. They don't have a single piece of evidence that he did it.
Yeah.
But they ignore him. But they don't have a single piece of evidence that Brendan did it, but they convict him.
Right.
Not a single shred of evidence.
Yeah, I agree.
Thing about they had 5 days to clean up. No.
The only thing against Brendan is that confession that was clearly fed to him.
Mm-hmm.
That's just, there's no two ways about it. That's the score.
Well, somebody's FOIA the Brendan calls. Can't wait to listen to him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to listen to him too. I mean,
Tracks, he puts out little pieces, but that could easily be manipulated to push his agenda.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Going slightly off topic, but obviously having watched the Ryan Ferguson case, isn't it interesting how that guy Chuck Erickson gets fed so much information that he then uses as an expert he sounds like an expert witness when it actually comes to the trial. But it's that Erin Moriarty points out when you first look at the interviews with the police, it's clear that he doesn't know a thing. And again, the similarities. But anyway, what I was leading towards was this then. So if in a hypothetical world, if you like, in the ideal world, if Governor Evers looks at Brendan sensibly, then looks at Steve sensibly, would it not be within his realms of possibility
that Evers beat Walker? Because if Walker was still in office, this wouldn't even be a discussion. Before he even became governor, he told them, "I'm not doing no pardons. I'm not looking at nothing."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But what I was going to say was, is it beyond the realms of possibility that if Governor Evers takes a sensible look at Brendan and then Stephen and just says, I want these two guys out. I want you to release these guys now, and I want you to do a proper investigation as to what the F is going on here. Am I being too naive and simplistic?
No, you're asking for it to call for an investigation into this? That'd be nice.
It needs to be one.
I know it'd be nice, but
A real investigation.
But who's going to do it?
Agency.
Who's going to investigate it?
I am right now.
I mean, the thing I get all the time from people is, why are they still in there? Why have they not been released? You know, if I still can't get the fact that with everything that Zellner has produced, the state, if they wanted to do a good job here, they would say, right, just let them out and let's find out exactly what was going on, because you can always get them back in again if.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Zellner put herself, this is the strongest case she's had.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
She said that, yeah. I never heard that, but
yeah.
Well, she actually also mentioned that compared with the Ryan Ferguson case, this is actually quite an easy one for her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was going to say the Ryan Ferguson one was definitely would seem a more difficult one.
She's got so many outs.
Yeah.
Just the Dean and Jerry stating that they messed up, ineffective assistance of the counsel. She's got affidavits that contradict what people said in trial. They got the evidence being left out, the nasty CDs, the fact they gave the bones away.
Yeah.
And then she included everything she needed to. My question is, why did she ask for the word extension, and then she files a brief and it's below it by 2,500 words or letters, whatever?
Well,
why did she ask for the extension, but then she's well below what it's supposed to be?
Who knows what it is exactly, but maybe she was just going over the original word limit and overshot. I don't know.
Possible.
I know it's not only about making your argument, but in a sense, it's also trying to make it succinct and to the point, because you don't want your reader, the judge, to be getting, bored while reading it or whatever. You want them to be able to kind of process it and kind of get it. So sometimes less is more, maybe. And I don't know, just possible suggestions.
Yeah. Well, am I right in thinking that at this stage we are only dealing with Judge Paul Liley, who is looking at this case from the District 2 Appeals Court standpoint?
Well,
I've got that bit right.
More options if I don't see the state doing the wrong thing, so I don't know. He's still got a lot more outs. I mean, Brendan, he's pretty much
right. Well, yeah, with Stephen, there's lots of evidence to test.
Yes.
So testing that evidence and bringing in those findings is like new evidence, right? So I get what you mean by outs. So that's what Stephen has going for him, whereas Brendan doesn't really have that going for him. The only thing against Brendan is his own confession. Yeah. And the big hurdle that the system is facing right now is recognizing that you can't feed a confession to a kid like Brendan, because he's not able to, he's not confident enough in himself to be able to stand on his own 2 feet with 2 authority figures like that. Especially at 16 years old. Most of us wouldn't be at 16 years old.
I wish the jury would have seen the end of the video where he recants and said they got.
I also wish that.
Yeah.
Travis Williamson, on the other hand, doesn't think so. He thinks, he thinks we're crazy.
We don't actually know how much of that interrogation they actually seen. Which, did it start from the beginning, or did they just play a certain part of it?
No, from what I understand, they listened to the whole thing and then they just shut it off. I think it was I don't know, something like 30 minutes. Or
I'm going to say the last 30 minutes, I think. But
13? Yeah, and that's
30. I think 10 of it is where Brendan's alone, and then 20 minutes when Barb comes back in.
Yeah, and it's when he's there with Barb. It was in that final 30 minutes where he was there with Barb, and he says, they got to my head.
Yeah, but he's basically sort of backtracking on everything that he said, isn't he? And he's also saying
too. I couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed that I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, because I couldn't think of it. I know that's always been a big telltale for me. I noticed that the minute I heard that in the interrogation, I was like, oh yeah, he just said He just said that.
It's just like when you're interviewing Earl, and they're like, "Okay, we're going to ask you some yes/no questions. Questions he can't answer yes or no because he doesn't know the answers."
Right.
Even he brings up the fact that, well, I think the cops are planting everything. I don't want to hear that at all.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And I think part of that interview is missing because he starts talking, and then it goes to the second part of the tape. And then they start saying, well, now that you told us all that, don't you feel a little bit better? Well, we didn't hear anything.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah.
What?
Sneaky bastards.
Yeah. And as I say, I'm sorry to ask a potentially awkward question, because obviously, Milbillie, your videos are excellent in that they cover what happened, and as you say, you're putting a timeline to things. But looking ahead with your crystal ball, what do you think is likely to happen in this case? Is it likely to be evidentiary hearing and then a full trial? What's your sort of feeling on that? And I know it's an awkward question. Don't worry, we won't be saying to you in 6 months' time, well, you said you thought it was this. Trust me, it's not like that. It's just the way you think it might be going at the moment.
Yeah, call it a theory.
A theory, yeah.
I'm hoping he gets at least the evidentiary hearing or a new trial.
Yeah.
She's got too much in this brief.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I agree.
And the violation of them giving the bones back, and then she also includes the voicemail that they left to her, trying to delay getting back to her. I mean, it's obvious that they're trying to hide something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like all the photos we have from Cuss Road are from the 8th, but the photos that we have that Manitowoc had taken are in their evidence storage. They take photos of photos.
Yeah.
Right.
And if there's no importance there, they discovered it on the 7th. Why do they come back the next day if there's nothing of importance found there?
Yeah, I agree.
So you've just reminded me of one other thing I was going to ask, and it was in one of your videos that you did. You've got it must be a nighttime scene of there being lights on a particular area in Custer.
That's the morning of the 8th. They started. They're in the helicopter the whole time. You could, if you look in the photos and play it in the slideshow, you can see that it's going in a circle around Cuss Road.
Yeah.
And you could also see the car that's driving through the quarry. It slowly gets close to Cuss Road, and then it finally parks on Cuss Road. You can see the people get out the vehicle. Why they have it blocked off? Why are they coming into the back?
Yeah.
Why are they letting Josh Redant come right in? Oh, he's okay. Let him right through.
Yeah.
Don't let nobody in but DCI and Josh Redant.
I do remember something about a report about Josh Redant saying that they had taped or crime scene taped his trailer, his deer camp, and all that, and
his burn barrels were also taped.
There was a burn barrel that had guard. They actually had 2 officers standing guard over it, like overnight.
It's right by the white garage that's on the south end of the property, next to the white trailer that's in between the 3 trailers. The red trailer is no longer there. They got rid of it for some reason.
Right. Yeah, I know. I remember when we all found out that was gone. Lots of people were pissed about that. So, yeah.
And they report to him, them asking him to unlock the trailer, but there's no reports of them going in or finding anything or searching.
Right. And the dogs were hitting down there and all that. So it's
the audio don't lie, because if somebody said it, you can't retract that. And dogs don't lie. They were obviously searching for something.
Yeah.
They
were on the trail of something off the Avery salvage yard. When it comes,
always makes me wonder why they were so interested in the berm where the brush was that Josh Redant was cutting down. Where they tracked his scent.
Yeah. Possibly. I mean,
jail calls, Steven mentions that one of the neighbors has been trying to get the junkyard shut down. Did he have something to do with this? He's not talking about Redant, though.
Right.
Just going back to that clip of the video, is there what looks like a burial site.
There's something there.
Yeah.
I remember, what's it described as, a spot of strange earth?
Why are they asking for a shovel? Manitowoc. They took control of Cuss Road.
Mhm.
That the 7th, they were there to search the outbound areas of Avery's property.
Mm-hmm.
Why on the dog reports they write on the back of the page, two, not just one report, two of them, they have the same things listed, one in red ink, one in black ink. One's by Michael Bushman, but on the front of it they say they're on Jambo Creek. But if you read Queso, they're broken into 4 teams, and if you listen to the Manitowoc transmissions, they're obviously on Cuss Road the whole damn time.
Right.
And in fact,
I mean, that interest on Cuss Road is certainly suspect. I mean,
and they're also taking photos of the house that's right down the street from William Siebert's house, and I've found out that Mike O has connections with that house.
Oh, okay.
It always bothers me, the Mike O statement.
Mike O, makes a very, very odd statement.
Says,
kind of a careless one. By the, so soon after it. And
Mike and Bobby hang out every day. The fact that where they find Mike, he's at Mike's house. Bobby's at Mike's house the whole damn time. Even you listen to these calls, Barb says, my kids won't even come home. Bobby didn't have a girlfriend at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Mike O is a person of interest for me.
Well, it goes back.
I honestly am not. I'm not ruling out that law enforcement could have done it, considering Peterson's words about Stephen Avery.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ruling it out, but honestly, I think it's most likely that they were taking advantage of something that happened.
Well,
and I think Mike,
for instance,
might have been in a position, and if him and Bobby were into that twisted, type of stuff that was being searched and checked out on the Dassey computer, I mean, that would make them prime people to look at. That's the way I'm going to say it.
Bobby's throwing Steven under the bus before they even find any of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. It's why is Bobby changing? Why did Bobby change his story? And
well, you hear when they're talking to Chuck, they ask Chuck, "Do you want to give us a statement?" He says, "I gave you my statement in Marinette. I have nothing to say." Well, this is your time to change it.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Earl hiding from the law enforcement? Why do they tell him that? Good thing you were hiding yesterday when we were looking for you, because we got somebody here with us today that wasn't there yesterday. So this works out better for you.
Yeah, it's
well.
And if you listen to Earl's interview, he claims the last time he was down in the pit was on Wednesday when he was hunting with Robert Fabian. He was there on Friday with Steven, sighting in his 30-06 in that exact same area by the Crusher. Now, this is 4 days after that. You can't remember that? You're choosing not to remember that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's a case of they are being very careful about what they say because they realize that any slip up?
Well, look what they did to Jody.
Yeah.
Why are they bringing up the Barb's blazer being burned and trying to state that it's Steven's blazer? They don't ask her about her once. They ask her about the beginning of the interview, and towards the end they bring it up again.
Yeah.
Two people, like I said it before, two people that were investigated, their alibis were never verified. Tom Yonda and Bobby Dassey. Bobby Dassey claims he was with Mike O goose hunting. They don't talk to Mike. Or did they and just failed to include it in the report? And Tom Yonda claims to be at Menards for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
I've been at Menards. I've never spent that much time there. I'm the type of person to go to the store. I want to go in and go out. Unless he's trying to stay away from Barb for some reason, because they were. But this is in 2004. a month before the Candy calls the Manitowoc Police Department on Stephen, and they transfer it to Calumet because she found Marie's diary with things written in it and the photos, and then they investigate it, and then ironically, she loses all the evidence when they find out that they're going to be talking to Dolores and Alan.
That is odd, that, isn't it? I mean, certainly, I don't think any of us is trying to say that the Avers are saints by any means, are they? There's definitely stuff going on there, and
you people trying to just live their lives.
Yeah. But you wonder how, in the hands of the police, how they can be manipulated. I mean, and at the very worst, at the very least, being as charitable to Bobby as I possibly can. He was guilty of looking at some terrible stuff on the computer and of lying.
Why is he late for 2 hours to work?
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't the law enforcement ask about it?
Well, because that would point, that's them going down another avenue which they don't want to go down. There's things that they never bother to test for. Isn't it interesting how they go under the bonnet and they test the. Now, I got criticised for this last night for calling it a bonnet catch. Okay, it's a hood latch, but why swab just a hood latch? Why not? Surely a police detective would realise that if you're touching a bonnet catch,
or the door handle, or
exactly,
like if you look at the blood that's in his Grand Am in his truck, you should have the same spots of blood in the RAV4 if he actually did drive it, and they're not.
And you'd certainly have this DNA on.
If that's blood evidence in the RAV4, why didn't they remove the pieces to seal them to make sure that they don't degrade?
You'd also have, as Andrew White had pointed out, Steve's a short guy.
Yeah, same height as Teresa Hallbach. He's the same height as Teresa Hallbach, 5'6".
Right. Okay.
And if you read, so when the FBI is doing seat measurements on the RAV from the steering wheel to the seat, they both get in it and they say that their knees are touching the dash, and they're both over 5'8". So that means a short person parked that RAV there.
So, right. Okay. So they didn't have.
When did Kevin Ramlow see the officer at the Cenex? Was it in the morning, afternoon, or night? Because we got Manitowoc calling Colorado 3 times on the 4th, starting at 12:58 p.m.
Is that one of the things
did they need to get that car out of there before the flyover happened? Why do we only have 3 minutes of the flyover? They spent over 25 minutes over 80.
Right.
So many questions, no answers.
Well, that's just it. It's the fact that the narrative is so selective, and what it looks at and the avenues unexplored. That anytime anything that was going to lead away from Avery came up, it was abandoned,
ignored.
And not, they didn't want to set one foot down a road that led away from Avery because they were afraid it would lead somewhere to something real significant.
Like, did they actually talk to Leo R? You hear Bigger say, "Oh, write it down, take a note of it. I'll look at it when I get back." I don't believe the case. Did he actually follow up on it? Well, it's very apparent that the dispatchers, when they're getting reports from people, they're picking and choosing which reports they pass on to officers. Like, I find it very disturbing that one of Teresa's friends calls and said that a number with all 9s called her. She heard her name twice, heard a whole bunch of commotion in the background, phone call went dead. She tells the dispatcher this. The dispatcher pretends to write her info down, says, "Well, maybe you should contact your phone company." She does that, calls right back, and then the dispatcher actually takes her info down. I'm leading to believe that maybe they have her listed as kidnapped, so they obviously found her car on the 3rd. Am I correct?
Yeah, well.
And it's labeled as dark green.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
Until they find the car, it's green. Even Tyson says he's standing by the green vehicle.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got a tarp on it, so how do you know what color it was?
Well, yeah. I mean, but that tarp wasn't covering all of it, but you know.
What myself and Milbillie Milbillie was explaining something to me about the photograph of Teresa Holbach and where that photograph, that iconic photograph of her stood clearly with keys in her hand.
Yes.
And you explaining to me a little bit about where that photograph was taken. Could you just expand on and just go over that again with us? Because I thought that was quite interesting.
In De Pere, Wisconsin, in Voyager Park, which is 10 to 15 minutes from the studio and Tom Pierce's house.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
She was there in that area. There's a dispatch call. Some lady calls in, says that Teresa Halbach was at her house that Saturday taking photos for her family. She wants to know if the photos were taken into evidence because she never got the photos. And she also mentions that Teresa was going to parks in the area, scoping out potential photo locations.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Pierce claims he took that photo. By the tree colors, I believe it's October.
Mm-hmm. And what you were pointing out was, of course, that not only does it show that she's got a bunch of keys,
Mm-hmm.
but also there's this business about the damage to the front end.
It's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that in 2017, they talked to everybody and they tried to get anybody to confirm the damage was there. Mm-hmm. They tried to get Ryan Hilgis to find the insurance claim that she allegedly never took out.
Yeah. Right. And they try and get Mike Holbach to look back on his computers to see if he can see a photograph. Am I right about that, dude?
Yep.
Mike Holbach is.
That was in Queso 2.0. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're still waiting on Mike Holbach to produce this particular photograph that he reckons is there somewhere.
Yeah. And we also have a check written from Teresa Halbach to Tom Pierce for the camera that she's holding in her hands.
Mm.
Yeah, it's odd. I'm not one to really want to say anything about the victim's friends or family, but there's some strange things.
Why is Kelly Pitchen calling Calumet, telling them to look at Bradley Check? He's been on the news talking about it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, that is, the fling with him, and then obviously his wife was a complication, and would continue to be, and who knows what she might have been capable of. I mean, so there is some avenues there that should have been explored as well.
Yeah, but the answer to why look at Bradley Check is because he's a boyfriend. He's clearly
one of the likely suspects.
Exactly,
he should have been
like Ryan.
Like Ryan should have been.
Yeah. For me, it's
the people closest to her first should have been looked at first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they weren't.
Nah.
It's oddly strange that the Halbach family put Ryan Hilgis in charge of all the searches, and you got people calling in tips, and they tell them, "Oh, call Ryan Hilgis. Here's his number."
Yeah,
give him a tip.
And you find out that in real life, Teresa was really getting tired, of him kind of lingering around and all that kind of stuff. Actually, offered Tom Pierce a wedding photo shoot or whatever because Ryan was one of the best men and she just didn't want to be there.
Yep.
I mean, for her to turn down work to avoid him, I mean, that's significant. That tells me.
If you look at the phone records, she's calling Ryan more than Ryan's calling her.
Interesting.
Mm.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
just, they chose a blind eye to other things and focused on.
Yeah, I think, I think there's something there somewhere. We're going to find out what actually happened. I don't think we've actually figured out what actually happened yet, because nothing yet fits and makes sense completely.
And it was also
Bobby, I guess, Zeller's theory with Bobby and Scott kind of is close because it explains the blood.
I think Scott Tadich alibying Bobby Dassey was to remove Mike Osmondson from the situation.
It could have been that was all, sideshow and smoke
Even
screen.
if you listen to Brendan's first interrogation in Marinette, he tells them Bobby and Mike go goose hunting every day in the quarry.
Oh, really? That's on tape at Crivets, or
you hear the tick 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 from the blinker the whole damn time.
Yeah. Oh, okay, the November 6th. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
He clearly states that Mike and Bobby go deer hunting every day. Why in the night there they talking to Barb and they're telling her your son's a suspect. He's one of the last.
That's interesting. Because Bobby says he never would go there. He would never hunt there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's why I say the audio thing they say is key. I want to get my hands on his interview.
Yeah.
It's there. We have evidence photo of it. It's in Calumet County's possession. 2 tapes.
So basically, looking at what you were just discussing, is what you're saying basically is that Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, this was just a bizarre coincidence and they struck lucky?
Well, if you look at who's contacted first in Manitowoc, Colborne, and then Link. I have audio of Link calling Calumet at 5:04 p.m. asking to talk to Weaker.
Oh.
Why are they lying about the time she was reported missing? Why do they talk to Stephen Avery, but they all go to Zipperers that night? There's 2.5 hours missing of what were they doing. They're obviously not together because you hear Dietering tell Colborne, do you have a cell phone? Call me. Jacobs is not with them yet because he's asking if they got in. Link's not with them. Colborne's sitting in the parking lot waiting for Dietering and Remaker to arrive. So they're not together. They're all separate.
Right.
And when you hear them say, does anybody have an idea what Andy, if that plate comes back to? Right before that, you hear Andrew Colborne run Jason Zipperer's plate. And dispatcher says, I got that plate info back. And he tells her, put it on hold. The fact that Manitowoc's dispatch is not time-stamped whatsoever.
Yeah.
It has to be at one time, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. You would think.
One final question. I don't know if Yves have managed to watch anything of the Rob Bellin interviews.
Yeah, I haven't yet, but I wanted to watch.
I've seen it all. That's very telling because they go over the officer statements during the trial.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that they point out is that in one clip we see Remaker actually on the witness stand saying that, well, to begin with, we didn't think it was Steve at all. We'd excluded him. We were busy away elsewhere. We didn't think for one moment it could have been Stephen Avery. And as Bellin points out, it's part of Ken Kratz's strategy of trying to present the illusion that, that it wasn't this tunnel vision. It wasn't this deliberate targeting of Steve.
Right.
If he was really targeting her, why would he call Auto Trader to set up the appointment? He has her phone number. He could have called her directly.
Exactly.
Right.
She'd been out to the property at least 7 times.
Right.
You sold vehicles already.
And there would have been no paper trail with Auto Trader to come back to him. I mean, that's yeah.
And when they're looking up her phone records, why does one of the phone calls she made come back to a room for rent in Green Bay?
Mm.
She's also calling a moving company.
Mm.
That's
Dispatch, Uyghur actually has them reverse look up the numbers, and they come back to unknown. Well, I was able to find out what they came back to, and then one of my friends, Calf, she's got access to the clips, newspaper clippings. She actually went in and found that actual article for the room for rent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow!
Wow.
It's obviously they hid things on purpose.
Yes.
Well, it does seem they were doing that. Yeah. Games of misdirection, and it's more like a magician show than a investigation.
Okay. Final question, because I've kept you here for over
How many
an hour.
times have you said final question already? Go ahead.
Okay. Well, final in the sense that I have asked this of you before, dude. I don't know if I've asked Milbillie this question.
Right.
Of the evidence that Kathleen Zellner has either developed or managed to impeach, what do you feel is going to be the number one item that's going to be the equivalent, if you like, of the pubic hair this time around? What's going to be the thing that's
Rav?
Yeah.
That was the one thing that gained their entry onto the property.
Yeah. The RAV is going to be, when Zellner gets her hands on that, I think it is going to be explosive, because she is going to go and swab all those areas that Stephen would have had to touch when he was opening the hood. And if it doesn't all come up with 1.9 nanograms or somewhere in that neighborhood, then the state's going to be looking the fool.
Yep.
And if there's nothing, they'll even look even more the fool.
The state was working with her to get able to test these items, and then Chuckowicz just automatically
denied. The state was assuming it was headed to an evidentiary hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a telling thing. But she does also put it on the state too, because she says, I asked them, should I notify the Judge Chuckowicz about this or whatever? And that's when Fallon says, oh no, give us 2 days so we can work out the logistics of getting the RAV4 down to Calumet Sheriff's Department and everything, so that you can examine it and whatever and do your thing with it. And in that 2-day period, basically, is when Judge Chukowicz's decision drops, boom, and shuts the door.
Yep. And that was like 1,017 pages, and she took no time looking over it. And in her last brief, took as much time as she could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because she knew if she mentioned procedural bar, that the Court of Appeals was most likely going to get very pissed off.
Well,
the
fact that they asked for more time is telling. Because they should have to really investigate all these claims.
Well, they should have been all day if they weren't already. I mean, geez, be prepared. Even if you're trying to cover your ass, be prepared. But anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So what do you think is going to be the state's sort of main argument in all of this? What do you think they're going to? Are they just going to rely on the fact, well, a jury's already found him guilty, and therefore, it's up to Kathleen Zellner to come up with something that
she has.
They're just going to continue to argue it the way they have been. They're going to argue that Stephen's procedurally barred from certain things. They're going to argue that. Some of the things don't qualify, whatever. I mean, it's going to be all arguing points of law and that sort of thing. But basically, I mean, these aren't the first time these issues have been filed. Sure. We've seen the state argue these things before, and I imagine we're going to see similar arguments to these items that we saw in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of a comment.
Hey, just think of making a murder made. If it wasn't for them,
So,
I wouldn't even be on this case.
yeah.
Right.
And she didn't want to take the case at first until she seen everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me of a comment from Dave.
I believe it's somewhere.
Well, Dave Butkus is pretty convinced that they will have gotten rid of it by now.
A
bit like the bones. A bit like the bones.
Well, I'll put it this way: if it is gone, that's retrial. In my that'll be like an instant retrial.
They gave the bones away.
I think that's likely to hopefully. I think that's a thorny issue
right there.
When it's actually the bones, giving the bones away, that act in of itself is actually something I can go, okay, you felt like you were trying to give some closure to the family, like somehow you were rationalizing that way. So it's like, okay, I can maybe kind of understand that, but hiding that you did it and holding back everything that proved that you did it, that shows you knew it was wrong and you did it anyway. So to me, that's the real big deal because
it's always the same people involved.
Oh yeah.
It's very telling. Go back who was there in October, November, and look who came back in March.
Mm-hmm.
Match the names. That's who's involved. They're about the same people back.
Right.
Hawkins, Tyson, all of them. Link is there when they find the bullet again. Link's there when they find the key.
Cast the characters, right?
Yeah.
Link is in Green Bay the day they find the car. Did he use the one that planted the 6 key note?
Right. Yeah, he was. What was he looking at? An RV, I think, wasn't he?
No, he was actually in the Green Bay police station.
Oh,
you hear it in the dispatch. He said he has to go outside because he's getting bad cell phone reception. And the first thing he says when they find out they found the car, well, did they find her body? She's got to be there somewhere. You got Jacob saying, "Do we have Stephen Avery in custody? Do we find a body yet?"
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They definitely have confirmation bias. It's pretty obvious.
But where's the sheriff during all this? MIA.
Running the show from abroad or from afar?
He claims he was on vacation.
Right. Giving him distance from it, but he's really calling the shots from his sofa at home while he's watching Jeopardy. I don't know. Anyway.
Well, I don't know. The sheriff is the head of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department Assassination Unit.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, look, there's this things that are interesting. It's like seeing Michael Bushman coming back. Okay, like first off, remember conflict of interest, right? Whole reason why Ken Kratz and Calumet had to be brought in. All the conflict of interest. They set that off themselves. They let that cat out of the bag and said, "Hey, look, conflict of interest." Mm-hmm. So in comes Ken Kratz, Calumet doing their thing, right? And so when you have that situation, then you have the coroner for Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. Folks, the coroner had nothing to do with Penny Bernson's case back in 85. Nothing. That office wasn't involved because guess what?
And I find
Penny Bernson didn't die.
They also removed her from Carmen Bootwell's case too.
Yeah.
Why did they ship her body all the way to Waukesha for the autopsy?
That's weird that those two girls are related and they're blocking her, and that's why a lot of suspicion has been around Carmen Boutwell, is because of that. I remember hearing it before. Mm-hmm. But to get back to what I was saying is that they have them barring the coroner, which is the one section of Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department that literally didn't have a conflict of interest.
Yep.
In this case. And then you have stuff like they're blocking her, but they're bringing in guys like Michael Bushman, retired Manitowoc County sheriffs,
reserve deputy,
who were on the original arrest party, who arrested Stephen Avery back in 1985.
Correct. And he's also a follow-up officer for the 04 fire. He's the one. It's still an open case on Stephen's record.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
If you look at the
They
document,
didn't press charges, you mean?
it's still an open case.
Right.
It's not closed.
Right.
Why, when they bring Jody in there, they bring up the Blazer fire twice?
Yeah.
They
I think
saying it was Stevens Blazer.
yeah.
The two people that didn't get their alibi verified at all, Bobby Dassey and Tommy Yonda.
Oh, right.
Bobby Dassey claims he was at Mike O's goose hunting. They don't ever talk to Mike O, or they did and just didn't include it in the report. And the fact that Bushman is the follow-up officer, he's the one that didn't close the case.
Right. Bushman was heavily involved with Ricky Hochstetler too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's only there for 9.5 hours on the 7th.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said. I mean, when you have that conflict of interest, and then you're telling the coroners who doesn't have the conflict of interest they can't come there, but you're bringing in retired sheriffs.
Actually,
Craig, we're on the fucking arrest party for Stephen Avery in '85. I mean, it's just like, oh, it's so painful.
Greg Stetter actually does page a coroner on the 9th, but it's not Manitowoc, it's Calumet.
Right, Calumet's coroner comes over. Right. That's what's so stupid. And then you find out they're like, what do we need a coroner for? What do we need a coroner for? Well, the Manitowoc coroner was going to be bringing a forensic anthropologist with her. Oh. So what's your excuse now? You know?
Yeah. What is the as a sort of, if you like, a percentage here? What do you think are the chances that Teresa's still alive?
None.
I don't believe she's alive. I believe she's dead.
I don't believe the way they say she died.
No. My only concern would be if
definitive proof that she.
Hold on just a second, guys. I got to step away for a second.
Yeah, no worries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no definitive proof that that what they say happened to her happened.
No.
Have they done a proper investigation and thoroughly looked into things? But they didn't.
No. For me, if it does transpire that the blood on the tailgate of the RAV4, if that was wrongly identified as being Teresa, that would be a big change of it. Well, for me, the fact that there is this blood there.
Carry Coke can to get the DNA profile. Why didn't they use the blood in the car? The fact that they don't remove the body panels that have blood on them out the car, they leave.
Yep.
So
okay. I did say that was the last question, so we are going to say cheerio, and the dude has obviously had to go and attend to some issue on Crunch Island. So I would just like to thank you once again for coming along and having a chat with us, and just please, from all of us, just keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, I plan on it
because it's absolutely brilliant, and it's one of the things I was thinking about was if it wasn't for people like yourself, getting this information, putting it out there, who is going to do it? It's
a lot of work. I've taken a lot of time. But it's worth it.
As you say, when you get a little gem of something that you've been looking for, how many videos did you say you went through before you found a bit of mention of the burning the bush?
26 calls.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you hearing them mention bits and pieces of it, but he actually says what I was waiting to hear.
Yeah. So you kind of sat there with pen and paper to make a note of the various things that you hear when you.
Yeah. I got all the notes. That's why I encourage people to do it. If you're going to listen to this stuff, actually listen to it. Take notes. Like, I've listened to every single one of Steven's interrogations, his reports on the news, and he's always saying the same things. The only time he gets a little flustered is when he's talking to Uyghur and Fassbender, because he's given so many statements, he can't really remember what day things actually happened.
Yeah.
And he's got to be frustrated because he didn't do it.
Yeah.
And he even tells them, Manitowoc's planting everything. You guys are finding it. I held nothing against you guys. You guys are doing your job, but lo and behold, he was talking.
Yeah,
about
I think that Wigan and Fassbender will have quite a lot to answer for at some point in the future.
Oh,
well, sure. I mean that's an hour and 20 minutes of just 80 minutes have just flown by.
So you could talk about depending on which part of this case you dive into, you spend hours and hours talking about it.
Absolutely. So
the fact that you can do that is very telling that something is going on.
Oh yes, yeah. It's and I mean, I would be honest. Yeah, I've had times when I've thought one thing, and then I've had that sort of change of direction. I'm sure most people have. You know, they were thinking about one thing.
I did a lot of research before I put my very first YouTube video out. That was my theory, and I've been trying to debunk it this whole time, and I keep finding more things that are backing it up. I honestly think Mike and Bobby did this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
But you want, you just got to be able to prove it.
Yeah. What I can safely assure you of that is that you're not the only one. I think so. Yeah.
Just their statements alone, how all his statements change, and Mike O's statement alone, he's claiming to talk to Steven. And if I just heard a jail call where Steven claims that never even happened. He never talked to Mike. He hates Mike. Mike hates him. And it's all because of Marie.
Yes, that's absolutely right. There is a big issue there, isn't there?
And just like 4 days before this 04 fire of Barb's Blazer, the Two Rivers Police Department show up to talk to Brian Dassey about alleged sexual assault allegation, and then the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department show up doing a welfare check on him. 2 days before the Blazer fire, Stephen Avery goes on the news and talks about his lawsuit he just opened and how he was wrongly convicted and how he's trying to adjust back to being a free man. And then the Blazer gets on fire 2 days later. Stephen has an alibi, but they were looking at him the whole time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's again. Let's not make it too long before we have another wee chat.
Well,
maybe. Yeah.
I'm here. Ask me any
That'd
questions.
Be great. That'd be great. And I do think that the dude is hoping to get round to having you on his channel for a chat. So much respect to you. Thank you once again for your time. We'll say cheerio. Oh, you're very welcome. We'll say cheerio to Eric Hosey in his absence. He's obviously had to go off and do something. So, good night, everybody. Thank you for joining in, and
cheerio.
Good night. Cheerio. Cheers.